Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust, Christian, own nothing, control everything. Just want to thank everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens in the replay. This is the vault episode 283, private citizen versus U.S. citizen. And really want to do this episode because this is something that is just a hot topic. It's something that has come up many years to the vault. So appreciate everybody tuning in live, listening to replay. A lot of people have asked this question through the years on consultations and otherwise. So appreciate you for tuning in live, listening to replay. This is the vault episode 283, private citizen versus U.S. citizen. Definitely want to do this episode today because so many people have asked about this. So let's just go ahead and get straight into it. Private citizen versus U.S. citizen. And it's interesting because we're going to bring out some examples. We're actually going to be coming from a Black's Law Dictionary, which is, this is a 4th edition. So, the same law that people feel like they're under, the same law that people feel like is being ministered against them or they have the right to actually use. You all can see that you actually have two different types of people, and so a lot of people don't know what the difference is between a private citizen. A lot of people say they want to go private. People say they don't want to be a part of something. People say they want to be a part of something. People want to maintain their privacy. We're living in an age where people think privacy is still not allowed. People think that privacy is leaving. But ladies and gentlemen, the private will stand, has stood for hundreds of years and will continue to stand because of the fact that everybody in the correct position is in the private and everybody else is in the public. So we're going to go ahead and talk about the right of privacy. And so this goes into what private citizens live by, how they operate, how they move, how they think. This is coming from the green version of the 4th edition. This is the right of privacy. Definition says the right to be left alone, the right of a person to be free from unwarranted publicity, the right of an individual or corporation to withhold himself and his property from public scrutiny if he so chooses. It is said to exist in many different cases, and so we don't need to go completely into the definition. You all can know where we're referencing from and move forward in that capacity when we talk about privacy or being private. We're going to talk about somebody that most people know in the public. We're actually going to reference someone that is blatantly in the public or was blatantly in the public, known as a private citizen. A lot of times when you read public definitions, if you guys Googled it or whatever search engine you guys utilize, private citizen is someone who does not have an official or professional role in a given situation. And so we're talking about somebody that's not holding public office, someone that is not looking to be inside of a public place. So a lot of times people are asking, how do I maintain my privacy? How do I, enforce my privacy? A private person is an individual who's not incumbent upon an office. So you get a lot of trustees, a lot of people come and say, how do I maintain my privacy? You see how. See, right now it's one of those things like people know about, whether it's dealing with taxes or dealing with citizenship or dealing with any of these things. These are things that you have to do the research on and know that you were born with these rights. Now, whether you step into a different jurisdiction, such as a public jurisdiction, as opposed to a private jurisdiction, those are choices that you have to make, and things of that nature when it comes to operating accordingly. It's so funny that someone that we staunchly promote their message. Appreciate Mississippi for tuning in live, listening to replay. Shout out to Mississippi. Feel free to type into the chat where you're listening live or tuning in to replay from. Someone that we actually promote staunchly, J.D. Rockefeller. A lot of people may or may not be familiar with this individual, but we're going to go ahead and talk about J.D. Rockefeller because this is an individual that was known to be one of the wealthiest individuals. Uh, when they created more public laws, he was an individual that was known as a private citizen, very much so against having his personal life involved in the public, but had a huge public business in the public side. But when you all research any information about this man, he's one of the few to actually be out in the public and state that he is not a public citizen, and specifically that he was a private citizen. And it's interesting because so many people they're unaware of these type of things, and they're upset that they think that their private rights are being infringed upon when he didn't hold public office. It's almost asking you, did he even have a social security card? Around that time when he was around, there really weren't social security cards. So you can see how by having social security, you can see how having a social security number can put you in a position where you are looked at as a public citizen, because you're participating in public benefits, participating in administrating public law, having public law administered against you. And so it's just very important to be aware of how people have conducted themselves in the past, how they've conducted themselves in general. And so we want to talk about that today. So we're going to go ahead and get into it once again. We're specifically talking about the private aspect, private citizen versus U.S. citizen. We already know what a U.S. citizen is. Somebody that's in the public, somebody that's operating from a position of they want to enforce public law because it is a public environment. It's a group environment. When we talk about even common law, common usage and customs, not everybody has the same common usage and customs of law. Or in the public, they've come to a group consensus. Whereas in the private sector, those are things that are dealing with private rights, A, and two, you not infringing on other people's private rights, or people not infringing upon private rights. Coming from the Black's Law Dictionary as well, 4th edition, we can also see that they have private businesses. We can also see that they have private corporations. And so when we talk about private citizenship, some people say, well, do I have to withdraw from the public? When you talk about withdrawing from the public, that's something that you may have to consider. A lot of people say, well, do I have to give up this number? And how can I operate? How can I get around? How can I travel? Ladies and gentlemen, J.D. Rockefeller did it just fine 100 years ago. See, he set precedent. When we talk about common law, we talk about precedent. Precedent has already been set. Private citizen rights, a right to privacy, is not going away. And the message in the public is oh, privacy is being infringed upon by the technology and things of that nature. Ladies and gentlemen, companies are getting sued for infringing on private rights all the time. There's no way of getting around it. So, private citizen versus U.S. citizen. U.S. citizens are people that are okay with their private life being on a public platform. Whether it's a social platform, social means public, domestic means public. There is a private international law. You can have private contracts over your life. Not public contracts such as Social Security number to protect your health, Medicare. Well, where they got Social Security, where they have that thing called Social Security that you pay into and it's going to help you in your retirement. The U.S. citizens are people that choose not to stay in the private. These are people that, when the Great Depression came around, they went to soup lines. They asked for handouts. They left their private citizenship status and they went over into the public. They asked for public handouts. They asked for public benefits. Well, right now, you have to ask yourself, do you collect public benefits? Do you participate in public controversies? Do you involve yourself in the public? In what capacity do you involve yourself in the public? A lot of people come to the vault and they say, well, I just want to be left alone. Well, it sounds like you're a private citizen already. The act of declaring that is just a statement for the public to let people know that you are against public scrutiny for what is it that you're doing. But people have forgotten this because they don't know their private rights. They don't know how to deal with contract law, contract being private. If the contract's being private before it's ever involving the government, it's private. But then you got these corporations that are state created entities, state owned entities, legislative entities. And then you got the private natural man, natural woman. You got a private person, ladies and gentlemen. Is there a difference between a private person and a private citizen? You all know that there are private citizens. You all know that there are private corporations. You know all of that. So let's talk about that today. Feel free to type into the chat. Christian@trustchristian.com is the email. Once again, we're going through privacy today. We're going through the private citizens. This is something that people are very upset about. People contact the vault all the time. Well, I don't want to be a part of it. I don't want to have to be forced to take somebody's shot. I don't want to be a part of that. Well, we're going to talk about that. So let's look for this private person. We got private rights already down. They have different types of things. They have private trust. Every trust, not a public trust. They got private rights and they got public rights. Are you aware of those things? They got a private business and a public business. Are you aware of those things? Appreciate Baltimore for tuning in live, listening to the replay. Shout out to Baltimore for tuning in live, listening to the replay. Once again, we are coming from a Black's Law Dictionary. Black's Law Dictionary 4th edition. It's the green version, so if you have it, that's great. But we wanted to make it a point to go over this specific subject today. A lot of people reach out to the vault and they ask this question all the time. So we're going to go to citizen because a lot of people are a little upset about how they're classified. Are they misclassified? Why haven't you been made aware of what is a private citizen? Well, the vault listeners, they know why they've been misclassified. It's because you've been miseducated. By what? A public school system. The public school system prepared you to be a public citizen so you can be in the public. Bottom line. So, once again, we're just going through the definitions, the dictionary, something you all can go get for yourselves and move forward in that capacity. So, just looking for a citizen. Once again, there are private citizens, ladies and gentlemen, whether people know it or not. Private citizens. And we just did a good read over this dictionary earlier today to make sure that we were coming from the proper perspective because, ladies and gentlemen, if you're in the United States, they utilize Black's Law dictionaries in the public. Lawyers, you can go ask a lawyer, hey, what dictionary do you guys utilize? So, the book does involve common sense. You have to be able to look up this information on your own, not have somebody such as Trust Christian or the Vault or anyone else tell you that you don't know what you're talking about when you can read the information for yourself. So, there's a difference between the state and the private sector. The state is generally dealing with the public. There's a difference between a resident and an inhabitant. These are terms that we're giving you all for trustees to go look up. People say, well, how do I fill out things if it only gives me one option? Should I do non-resident alien and things of that nature? We get so many people contacting us talking about should they go in different routes of agreement. But in all actuality, why would you? Why would you go against what will be the current system in place? A citizen, a municipal corporation. So corporations can be citizens, ladies and gentlemen. Did you know that corporations can be citizens. They're under the same law of the state that they were created in. And these are the things that you have to be aware of. We encourage you all to continue to look through the Black's Law Dictionary for citizenship, whether it is public or private, whether it is foreign or domestic. We get a lot of people that contact the vault and say, well, I don't want to be a part of this particular situation. At the same time, are you talking about it from a state level, or are you talking about it from a federal level? The federal level enforces over top of the state. They say that the federal rules the states. States have their individual rights, but all the United States fall up under the federal jurisdiction. This is not intended to be legal advice. You always got to give that preface in general, because over the internet, you don't want to lead people astray. You want to give people disclaimers and let them know to do their own research. It's just to bring something to people's attention so they can go out and do further warranted research. And that's how we look at it as well. It's just putting you on notice to look at something of your interest. A lot of people, like we say, vault listeners come out and they ask us about this. A lot of trustees, they ask this question about, especially when it comes to like dealing with the bank, when it comes to dealing with a driver's license that state created, when it comes to passports and things of that nature. A lot of people talk about, how do you maintain your privacy? Should I go national? Should I be an American national? Should I be a state citizen? Well, you all can Google who J.D. Rockefeller was and start researching how is it that this individual was able to maintain their privacy. How were they able to be legally called a private citizen? And it's really simple. Own nothing, control everything. Christian@trustchristian.com is the email y'all can reach out to put yourself in that position, because that is the position to be in. It's own nothing, control everything. You have to move in a position where you understand what's really in commerce. In the public sector, there are businesses. In the private sector, there are natural born people. Usually people in the private sector have family trust, have family businesses that are operating as U.S. citizens for periods of time. You see quite a few trust or businesses that eventually either change their name, such as the Robert Morris Trust, one of the oldest trusts actually in the United States. We could share that with you. Let's look that up. Robert Morris Trust. And the Robert Morris Trust has been around for years, ladies and gentlemen. But at the same time, a lot of people are not aware that this entity has changed its name throughout the years. And so when you look at these type of entities, you all can see that people have been operating in this capacity from the beginning. Appreciate Dallas for tuning in live, listening to replay. Shout out to Dallas, Texas. Dallas, Texas for tuning in live, listening to replay. Once again, this is a very sensitive topic because people say, well, do I have to give up the U.S. citizenship? Do I have to give up public benefits in order to be a private citizen? Ladies and gentlemen, if there is a distinction between the two positions, of course you will have to. But a lot of times, a lot of people don't want to give up their public employee status because they've been given a public employee education via the public education school system. It is a conflict of interest for you to be a private citizen if you have gone through a public school system. The public school system is to train people that want to go into government, that wants to train people to go into the public and utilize public benefits. Think about everything you've been groomed from as far as being in the public. There is a direct conflict of interest when you went to public school for you to maintain your private citizenship status. Did they share with you how to maintain your private citizenship status? No, because you're in the public. And in the public, they have rules and regulations. They have legislations. Whereas in the private, it's common uses and customs. There's enforcement against private property. What happened to the Constitution protecting private rights, such as a right to free speech, such as a right to bear arms, such as a right to private property? And if the government takes it, if a U.S. citizen takes private property, there is a financial fee that is associated with it. It says it in the Constitution. But how many people know that the Constitution is a private contract? So when we get the Moors and all these different fringe groups and these different individuals contacting the vault, talking about, well, they said don't bring the Constitution in the courtroom because they're dealing with legislative law. Exactly. Do you know what environment you're in? Do you know what jurisdiction you're in? Are you operating as a trustee or are you operating as a U.S. citizen? Are you operating as a private citizen? Because if you're a private citizen, you don't participate in public controversies. You pay the bill. The entities pay the bill. Private citizens are able to maintain their privacy by not being involved in public controversies, by making sure that they have contracts which are private in place. When people talk about the UCC being in place for protection of private citizenship, first of all, where did the UCC come from? UCC came from the United States. So it's already public. It's a public notice environment. And it actually usually is filed in the tax assessor's office. So we're talking about things that deal with public, but at the same time, a lot of trustees are not happy about the fact that they've been classified as something that they never even elected to be. They weren't elected to be. And now they want to put themselves in a position where they can maintain their privacy like J.D. Rockefeller and own, not to control everything. Whether that's through trusteeship, whether that's through management, and whether that is maintaining their own right to their body that they are in control of. Well, when you went through public school, did they teach you how to create private contracts that put people on notice in the public to let them know that you're private and not public? But people are utilizing public documents. Oh, I'm going to utilize the birth certificate to show that I'm a natural living being. Sure you are. Ladies and gentlemen, that does not show that. A lot of people say, oh, well, the birth certificate says that I'm a U.S. citizen. Where? We haven't had a trustee yet to this day or anyone come through the vault that says on the birth certificate it says that you are a U.S. citizen. We have yet to have a trustee or someone come onto a consultation and say that the birth certificate displays that information. But as you can see, by you accepting benefits, you're starting to put yourself in the public. By you accepting entitlements, you're putting yourself in the public. So it's a challenge for people to say, okay, well, can I be an employee and still be a private citizen? Ladies and gentlemen, are those companies public? Do those companies accept public citizenship numbers, social security numbers? How is it that the Quakers, how is it that the Amish are able to operate without social security numbers? How is it that their religion says that they are against vaccinations and they're able to operate still accordingly in their private capacity? How is it that Native Americans are able to operate in that capacity? You already know. The Social Security Administration, the Social Security number is something that says, hey, look, you want some public benefits? That's what makes you public now. You want public entitlements? That's what makes you public now. Trust Christian, what do you mean? I don't really have too much savings. I'm not able to go private. I'm not able to create a business right away. And where do I start? Do I create the LLC or the C Corp, or do I go into private trust? This is the myth and the question of the day. How do you maintain that privacy? Is it still through corporations or is it in trust? We already know what it is. It's in trusteeship. You don't have to ask anymore. Why? Because you don't own anything. Ownership puts you in liability. Control, you have a duty. You have a responsibility. It's a contract once again. Did you breach the contract? What contract do you have right now in place for you and your family? Is it public or is it private? Is it declared publicly but originated in the private? Or was it created in the public and filed on the public record? These are the things that when you say versus public citizen, private citizen versus U.S. citizen, you can see the difference. Some people say, well, Trust Christian, give me the answers. The answer is, are you going to continue to accept public benefits and entitlements, or are you going to move into a position of trusteeship? Own nothing, control everything. J.D. Rockefeller was in that position. Did you know J.D. Rockefeller doesn't have a college degree? Did you know J.D. Rockefeller didn't even have a high school diploma? How many of you all are further down that road? And now you see why there's a difference between a private citizen versus a U.S. citizen. Somebody typed into the chat. Feel free to type questions into the chat. Somebody said it all surrounds the private commercial security agreement. Private commercial security agreement. Once again, they have quite a few agreements that you or that people have in place. Whether that's a private contract, we specifically just say a private contract, but some people may utilize private commercial security agreements. But when it comes to these type of specific terms, you have to be able to be aware of what commercial means. Commercial traditionally is on the public side. When you talk about security, what are you guys securitizing? What is the security in general? What are you securitizing? Have you gone to a securities agent? Why? Because they're the ones that deal with securities. They know securities law. Are you familiar with securities law? Because if you're creating a private commercial, which generally is dealing with business, commercials dealing with enterprise or business or things of that nature, and you're dealing with a security, which is still dealing with some type of encumbrance, and there's an agreement. But who is that between? Why isn't there just a declaration like the Declaration of Independence? The Declaration of Privacy. How come people haven't declared their privacy yet, but they're accepting public benefits? Oh, Church Christian, I gotta give up this, I gotta give up that. Something that you didn't create. Did you create the social? Did you create those public corporations? The legislative law that allowed those entities to create? That, you know how many corporations they got out? They got corporations out the wazoo. They got B Corps, C Corps. They got all different types of corps, LLCs, S Corps. They got all these different type of commercial entities on the public side. But then you all hear Trust Christian at the Vault say, oh yeah, they got over 80 different types of private contracts too. Private contracts, private trust, contracts in general, contract law, private. So you got the Declaration of Independence, which is the declaring that private people have private rights. And then you got the Constitution for the United States, or each subsequent state or otherwise, that states no state will impair the obligation of a what? Contract. Contracts generally dealing with private. We can go to Article 1, Section 10. We could talk about how gold was confiscated, and gold was confiscated at one point in time. And in turn, people had to confiscate it, but they also came back out with laws. Said we're not going to deal with that anymore. We're not going to deal with the fact that it can be confiscated. There are specific styles of gold and silver that are not confiscatable. Once again, can a state become a citizen, ladies and gentlemen? These are questions that you have to ask yourself. No law impairing the obligation of contracts. They can't grant you a title of nobility. No state can grant you a title of nobility, ladies and gentlemen. They don't have kings and queens in the United States. So are you a United States citizen? Are you above somebody because you're a United States citizen? What happened to the private sector? The private contracts that are in place to protect private rights. Do you even have a private contract that protects your private rights? Do you know your private rights? Most people don't. They think that they're at the whim, that they're at the whim of the so-called public U.S. citizens. When in all actuality, all you gotta do is just stay out of their business. Stay out of their jurisdiction. How do you stay out of their jurisdiction? One, are you employed? Are you, oh man, Trust Christian, what you trying to tell me? I wanted to do this for my whole life to work. I wanted to play basketball, Trust Christian. Well, guess what? All of them are paying taxes in every state separately. They got foundations. They didn't put their business affairs in order properly. Basketball, football, any of them. They're operating as employees, utilizing social security numbers. Oh wow, now you see that it pays to be a boss. It pays to be private. That's where wealth is held, privately, not publicly. You all can see how the public is administering its public legislative rules and governance. Are you going to maintain your privacy by making sure that you're not utilizing public benefits, entitlements, and privileges? Or are you going to use just your private rights to maintain your privacy and put people on notice that you are doing so? You can put the public on notice that you're doing so, just like J.D. Rockefeller's lawyers instructed him to do. And that's why you can Google people that say they are private citizens that are not involved in the public through public controversies or public interest. Trust Christian, I don't want to have to deal with all these things no more. Well, are you going to become an entrepreneur? Are you an entrepreneur? Do you own the business or do you control the business? People come and they keep asking this question: do I go private with the private trusteeship first, or do I go and I start a business? Which one comes first? Well, those public entities, those LLC C corps, they're still public legislative entities. So you don't need to ask the question, which one do you do first? You have to make that hard decision. There's never an easy time to make a hard decision. We're going to read a comment. Somebody says, when possession is really 9/10 of the law, when is the remaining percentage control factor comes into play? This is a great question. We actually answer this question in trusteeship quite a bit. Because if possession is 9/10 of the law, we're talking about equity. Equity dealing with the actual hard, tangible asset. But when you deal with any type of property, there's different titles. They have legal title and equitable title. Legal title, 1%. Just like the UCC. When you make a claim over your body, that's the legal title. The body itself is the equitable entity, the equitable aspect of the situation. It's the property itself. When you're dealing with the mortgage, you're dealing with the equitable title. When you're dealing with the county record, the county of saying who has legal title to the property, who has legal obligation to the property, they come first. The legal person is liable. But do you own it through legal title, or do you own it through possession and control? Well, why do you think that rule is around? Possession is 9/10 of the law. Well, if possession is 9/10 of the law, who's coming up with that other 1%? Who has the legal title? Who created the legal title? Most people didn't create a legal title for their life. They just accepted group U.S. citizenship. That's what they did. They accepted to be a part of a free and dual society, the public side. But what about the private side? You have the right to maintain your privacy, right? Right. We already know how you do that. But some people say, well, what about using the UCC as the place to declare it? Nothing wrong with that. Why not? It's a public noticing environment. You put it down even on the county, particularly the county record, to let people know. County-wise, Secretary of State-wise, guess what? We're letting you know. This is what's going on with this private citizen, private person. Now we're going to have a fee schedule attached to it. People say, well, should I attach the fee schedule on the document? Why not? That's the legal, not the equitable. The equitable, you ready for this? Is that social. Remember how they make charges against the equitable title? And because there is no legal title on the public side that's been declared, the possessive title, the equitable title, you think about it. You can have your name filed on the county record all you want for a house. If you don't pay the mortgage, which is the equitable title,
How long you think you're going to live in a house before they foreclose on you? They still got private charges on the equity. Excuse me, not private charges. They still have public charges on the equitable title. Public encumbrances on the equitable title. Well, what about the private title? Where is that title? Appreciate Columbus, Ohio for tuning in live, listening to replay. Shout out to Columbus, Ohio. Somebody say all they can do is put a lien on it. What they can do is try to attach what they call sureties, people that stand in the way, stand in position of the equitable position. By them standing in the position of an equitable entity, they don't. It's just something that we always go back to. Our mentors told us a long time ago: freedom ain't free. So if you think that modern day slavery isn't happening, you're out of your mind. You would like to think that that's not being practiced by social elite, but that's unfortunate that people are thinking that there is no such thing as evil in the world. When people think there's no such thing as evil in the world, when it really is. It hasn't ended just because you're in a so-called free society. There's nothing wrong with that. They said they wouldn't make you involuntarily walk into U.S. citizenship. Did you involuntarily walk into U.S. citizenship, or did you volunteer? Did you volunteer by continuing to use the social, the thing that gives you entitlement to the system? Or did you operate in the proper position, the proper capacity? Well, most people, we know what they're doing. You don't want us to say that people are weak, because then that will make you question yourself. Do you own nothing, control everything? Are you lying to yourself, telling yourself that you own a house because you have a mortgage? Private citizens don't have mortgages. But how many people are parading around talking about they got a house, they own a house, equitable title, because they have a mortgage that can get foreclosed on? Got another question in the chat. Feel free to type your questions into the chat. Christian at trustchristian.com for consultations or trustee training. Somebody said, is that like registering a car? Once again, a lot of people try to say, "Oh, we're gonna get the what did they say? They got this fringe group information going out with the Moors and all these vigilantes on the internet. Oh, you got to get the manufacturer service order or whatever they call it, something like that, where they're like, oh, you got to get the original thing. Once again, if you own nothing, control everything, who owns the vehicle? Is it you directly, or is it a person? Well, let's look up and find out what a person is in law, because we're coming from the Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. We already came at it from a position of privacy. We're going to come at it from a position of what an actual person is, because this is very, very important. A lot of people feel like they've been left in the dust because they haven't been given proper information or even a proper source to go out and move forward and know the difference between what a person is and what a person is not. So we're going to go ahead and give you all what a person is. A lot of people know, what a person is. A person can actually be a corporation, can actually be a trust. Corporations are persons, as the word is first used in the clause in the 16th Amendment. No, excuse us. Was that the 14th? Yeah, 14th, because it's the I before the V. So the 14th Amendment. Oh, did you know about the 14th Amendment? Now you see what made people U.S. citizens? The 14th Amendment? Oh, trust Christian, but I don't want to be a 14th Amendment citizen. Oh, okay. So what are you then? I'm a private citizen. I'm standing in that position. I'm standing in that capacity because I don't want to utilize the thing that made me a public citizen. What made you a public citizen? That the social, the thing that they can transact and charge on. If you don't have a social, how can they charge you? But they're not charging you if you're private. They're charging the person, which is the social, which is a juristic or artificial entity. But a corporation of another state
But a corporation of another state is not a person within the jurisdiction of the state until it has complied with the conditions of administration to do business in that state. Did you guys apply to do business in that state? Persons are of two kinds, natural and artificial. A natural person is a human being. An artificial person includes a collection of succession or natural persons forming a corporation. A collection of property to which the law attributes the capacity of having rights and duties. Now we could keep sitting here going through, this Black's Law Dictionary, but it encourages you all to get your own Black's Law Dictionary so you all can read it for yourself. But when you all look at what's on the public side deals with entitlements. It doesn't deal with private rights. Are you guys in a civil position? Don't they have civilians? These are terms that we encourage you all to look up. Because when you all see the environment that you all are looking to step into, specifically the listeners of the vault, and you say, oh, we're going private, we want to enroll in trustee training, we want to maintain our privacy, own nothing, control everything. Well, you know what position you got to put yourself in. You know what position you have to maintain. The man says, when you register a car or property, are you giving up equitable interest? Think about it. If you were giving up equitable interest in the property, would you be paying for any type of debts if you gave it up? Most people don't. But when you're in an environment where there's a group law, and this is nothing wrong with group laws. We are proponents of common uses and customs, common law, precedent. And J.D. Rockefeller has set that precedent as a private citizen. Own nothing, control everything. That's the difference between a private citizen and a U.S. citizen. Feel free to reach out. Go private, Christian at trustchristian.com if you're looking for trustee training so you can be in the same position as J.D. Rockefeller, or you can continue utilizing your job. There's plenty of trustees that they've come through, they had jobs, but they end up learning the ultimate question. Do I gotta quit? Do I gotta go out and create? Do I gotta go out and provide in a different capacity, in a proper capacity? Yes, because in the private sector we know that there's an informed family and an uninformed family. And if you're not informed, you have a public school education. But if you're informed, you're operating in a private capacity. And that capacity comes from a private education. You got to get private education. Did you get a public education? Yeah. Didn't they educate you to get a U.S. social? Yes. Private education, it's about being in a proper position. Own nothing, control everything. Appreciate you all for tuning in live, listen to replay. Christian, I trust Christian. Feel free to share with your friends and family. Make it a point to come together in common usage and customs and common law, because the United States has adopted the common law of England because they utilize contracts. The United States Constitution is a contract. The Declaration is a contract. But did you declare that you were actually adhering to that? Or did you walk into the acquiescence of U.S. citizenship? Oh, well, my mom made me a U.S. citizen. My mom and my dad, they got me a U.S. Social Security number. Well, who said you needed? Who said you had to accept benefits? Who said you had to accept that? How am I going to operate Trust Christian if I don't accept entitlements? How am I going to operate Trust Christian if I don't accept privileges? Quite a few people are. Native Americans are. Amish are. Quakers are. You need us to continue going through the list? Oh, it's real. But think about it. When you're on the public airways, aren't you supposed to talk public? Right. That's why you got to get a private education. Christian at trustchristian.com. Appreciate you all for tuning in live. Feel free to get at us in the private, and we look forward to hearing from you all in 2021. Move forward with your life. Appreciate you. Peace.